And so what I like to do when I talk, and I only have a few minutes, is try to make the case for folks at a Dem club like this about why you should care and put some serious effort into the trial court judges. And I'll tell you exactly why. All right? We handle all sorts of different kind of cases, from the ridiculous to the sublime to the mundane. You'll have car accidents, we'll have civil cases, we'll have smaller criminal cases. But every case starts somewhere, including the most major cases. And that happens from time to time, and it can happen to any of these judges. And it did happen to me. I don't know how many people here remember what happened in 2022, June of 2022 to be specific. There was a real major Supreme Court decision. Does anyone remember what it was? The Dobbs decision. Okay, that overturned Roe versus Wade. Does everyone know what that meant? It overturned Roe versus Wade. What did that mean for Ohio? Well, what Dobbs did was it cleared the way for state-level bans to go into effect. That's what happened. And Ohio already had a 6-week law on the books. So by the end of the day, when the Dobbs decision came down, the federal injunction that had been in place under Roe versus Wade for a long time was lifted by the end of that day, and that law went into effect. And very shortly thereafter, on a quiet Friday afternoon when I was sitting as equity judge, and we do a rotation where we all sit as equity judge week by week, a petition was filed and a motion was filed to issue an injunction to enjoin Ohio's ban from going into effect statewide. And I was on duty that day. It could have happened to any of these judges. It just happened to be me. And so we had a lengthy proceeding, a hurry-up trial, maybe about 4 days of testimony. And then what happened? I issued an injunction that barred the state of Ohio and every prosecutor in the state of Ohio from enforcing Ohio's so-called Heartbeat Act. And I issued that injunction statewide. So if anyone ever says they're not sure why we worry about the judges, what I want people to remember is, for more than 18 months, one person stood between 5.5 million Ohio women and the Republican supermajority in the state house that wanted to take away their reproductive rights, and that was me. Okay? And that just underscores how significant these roles are. There are other major cases around the courthouse, maybe that don't find as much publicity, but they're there. And what I want you to remember is every major case starts somewhere. So the question is, do you want judges who share your basic Democratic Party values to be the judges in those spots? And that's where I like to dispel a little myth, the idea that these races are nonpartisan because we don't have the party ID on the ballot. You'll hear people say that. I had a county commissioner say to me 2 weeks ago, "Oh, but your races are nonpartisan." That is a myth. Don't you believe it? And I want to tell you one other little story. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but back in 2021, the Ohio legislature passed a law that went into effect in 2022. And what did it do? It's a lot like gerrymandering. Everybody's familiar with gerrymandering. Well, they did sort of the same thing to judges, if you ask me. They passed a law, they looked at Ohio's political landscape, and they said Ohio is, maybe 55 to 45 Republican Democrats statewide, right? And they said, if we put the Republican R and the Democrat D behind the judges statewide, we bet we can win the Ohio Supreme Court. Does anybody know what happened? It went from 4 to 3 Republican to Democrat. Now it's 6 to 1 because of that. And there's a very good chance, unfortunately, that it'll go to 7 to nothing this year. But you know what they did at the same time? They also looked, when they were passing that law, they looked at us. And they said, should we do the same thing for them? And they did an analysis, and they realized that there's 88 counties in Ohio. 3 counties in Ohio account for more than 1/3 of all the judges in Ohio. Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, Hamilton County. And those are all blue counties. And so there was testimony in front of the legislature, and they asked the head of the Ohio Appellate Judges Association, should we do this for the trial court judges like we did the Supreme Court justices? And that person said, this is a quote, "There is no intellectually honest reason to treat the trial court judges differently than the Supreme Court judges." But they did it anyway because they realized if they took off the D and the R for the trial court judges, then a lot of Republicans would get elected even in those most populous counties. And it's true. While we have a majority, we do not have an overwhelming majority on our trial court here in Hamilton County. And so that's why it's so important. Please emphasize with people, think about the judges, don't forget about them, don't skip the judges, find out who is a Democrat and who is a Republican. And by all means, do not accidentally vote for a Republican. All right?